maybe here's another angle on that same topic from the executive's perspective. So you've got an entrepreneur, and if I'm going to use the normal situation or a stereotype there, they created something from nothing. They're used to being in charge. They're used to, in many cases, directing, being the conductor. And now they're going into a situation where they've got an investor who has resources and they've got big plans. They want to scale. And like you said, what worked before isn't going to work going forward. What do you have advice for that executive who's now in a brand new world?
Indeed. And one of the reasons I do what I do on this side of the firewall now is an enabler. Going back to the cultural piece, change management, it's easier to have those conversations with a CEO when you are unaligned, so to speak. Mm-hmm. You are an independent party. And as you can see on film, I've got some mileage on me, so I may be closer in age to some of these guys.
Right.
And when they understand my pedigree, they know I'm one of them. So you can have a pretty interesting conversation. If you don't earn their trust, you're not going to learn what you need to know. You know this. Right. I have some favorite questions. And if we start with the target, it's I think a Covey thing, begin with the end in mind.
Sure.
Where do you see this thing? And you give some increments, short-term, long-term. I said, okay, when you think about that and that you and your team are accountable for that, what keeps you up at night? And sometimes that dislodges the thought. And if that doesn't work, then I've got a backup question. And the backup question is, let's pretend the growth fairy visited us last night, and when you came in this morning,
right,
the place is 3 times as big as it was. Can you run it the same way? Now this is interesting. I'm careful about hyperbolic statements. I have never, and this is over 150 portfolio companies, I have never had someone say, yeah. In fact, the more common reaction is something with a little emotion behind it, maybe even an expletive, which basically translates into
Right.
And then you see something in their eyes, uh-oh, what did I just tell this guy? Time out. Whatever popped in your head is exactly what we ought to be talking about.
Right.
Whether it came up in diligence or not, irrelevant. If it is an impediment to that vision you just described, that's what we ought to talk about. Right. And when you can connect on that level, some interesting things pop out about operations or about leadership or about systems.
Right.
And we've hung around each other enough. I've got some pet peeves about diligence.
Right.
And one of the ones that needs a lot of improvement is systems. Operational diligence, which is something you guys do. I'm a protagonist of these things, and as well as leadership diligence. It doesn't mean I do it. It means somebody needs to do that for you.
Right.
Because it is quite common that the systems that are required to be part of productivity are not there. And if that's the case, and 80-20 it is, the price of fixing it in cash and non-cash costs is staggering in relative terms.
Especially when you consider the opportunity cost to where they could be.
Exactly. And it is not something you can dodge. You're going to have to get to it. And the longer you wait, the worse it is because of internal rate of return calculations.
Hearing you talk about that makes me think about the messaging for middle market methods and in this channel, value creation, makes me, one of the things I just love about this way of looking at it is we're not just here trying to cut costs to increase earnings or EBITDA. There's so much room for growth and improvement.
Absolutely.
And that part about the entrepreneur, and it's the entrepreneur and the sponsor. If we can take, and I think this is a lot where your psychology comes in, if we can take ego out of the equation and get people to truly be safe and comfortable in looking at the evidence and letting it take them to where's our biggest opportunity to grow value. I think that's where your, if I hear you correctly, your biggest gains in the last 10 or 15 years in your practice has not been the technical tools you use, but rather how you can reach more people.
Yeah.
And connect with them.
There is nothing more gratifying than someone calling you back years after the fact because they trust you and say, I'd like your advice on something.
Amen.
And I know you guys do this. This is a big part of the way I learned how to do this, is that we have to be value creators ourselves. And that doesn't always mean that we're the solution. Sometimes I listen, and these are from good clients, and I've trained them this way, is call me when it hurts. I will find you a solution. If it's
Right.
me, I'll tell you.
Right.
If it's not me, I
Right.
pride myself on knowing who you should talk to.
Yes.
Which is why you get a referral once a month.
Amen.
So-
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very
So
much.
it's all about solutions providing,
Yes.
and you've actually simplified life for your portfolio company client or your sponsor client, because we've been doing this a lot of years. You meet people that you know are really, really good at what they do, and you know some people that they shouldn't do business with
Right.
for technical or cultural fits. And that's accretive to either party. So it happens often, and I just love it. One of my clients from the past called me to say, look, I'm in a nonprofit. I know nothing about this, but agreed to be on the board. Help me figure out how to do this. Happy to help. Happy to help. So it's fun. Look, it keeps me young mentally, and the older I get, the more important that is.
Yes. Amen. I'm getting there too, my friend.